champagne. So it is finally fall, at least here in South Louisiana. It may only be like 70 degrees today, but whatever, I'll take it. So anybody who knows, if you live in the South, the second the temperature drops below 80 degrees, you already taking that gumbo pot out. What I love about gumbo is that there really is no right way of making it. You can do it with chicken and sausage like we're gonna do today. You could add seafood to it. No like perfect way of making gumbo. When I make gumbo, I do it a little different every time. So what I have here is some chicken. This is some chicken thighs and legs. Sometimes with a gumbo, I'll get like a whole chicken or like a hen and break it down. So for this gumbo today, we are going to actually be doing a chicken and sausage and andouille gumbo, which is kind of like the classic gumbo recipe. I have 4 thighs and I have 6 legs. And I really like dark meat in my gumbo just because it holds up really well together. I find that white meat, like breast meat, tends to kind of shred up and fall apart as the gumbo cooks and as you stir it and reheat it. So I really like to just stick with dark meat. And then also I have a mixture of some smoked sausage as well as some andouille. This is Veron, it's a local brand and it is like my absolute favorite sausage. It's my favorite sausage and andouille mixture, but use whatever you have at your local grocery store, whatever kind of sausage you prefer. Some people I've actually seen put fresh sausage in their gumbo, which, whoo, Lord, that looks like it would be delicious. So what we're gonna do first is we're actually gonna brown the chicken. Sometimes too, like my grandma does, she actually boils her chicken first and then uses the cooking liquid that she boiled her chicken in to be like the liquid base of the gumbo. And then what I do is in the drippings that I brown the chicken in, that's what I use as the base for my roux. So that's what we're gonna do today. So we're gonna keep the seasoning for this really simple. I just have some salt, pepper, a little mixture of garlic and onion powder, some Slappy Mama, of course, and of course some cayenne for some heat. So I'm just gonna season all this up. I'm gonna pop it into this big Dutch oven. This is like the best kind of pot to cook a gumbo in, something big, it's got a wide base at the bottom, a lot of surface area. And I just have in here a mixture of some vegetable oil as well as some butter. I like to mix the two. A lot of people when they make like their roux will stick with just like vegetable oil, but since I'm browning the chicken in there and I want to get more color and more flavor, obviously, because butter just makes everything better, I went ahead and added some of that in as well. So I have that all melted down. Browning all of our chicken. So now I have all of the drippings that the chicken produced as it cooked, the oil, the butter, and this is what we're gonna use as the fat part for our roux. With roux, it's really kind of hard to give like precise measurements of how much fat to flour. A lot of people say equal parts, but I don't necessarily find that that always works. I feel like the size of your pot and the size dish that you're making really what determines your roux. I like to just kind of eyeball it. I don't take out any of the grease. I like to just start off with what I have in the pot, add flour to it until it gets to the consistency that I like. And then what's awesome about roux is that you really can't mess it up per se, because if you feel like it looks too thin, you can add more flour. If you add a little too much flour, then you can add in a little bit more fat. So just kind of play with it and get it to the consistency that it should be, which is just nice and smooth. When you run a spoon through it, it stays separated, it doesn't run back together, but then it's not so thick where it's chalky. And I'm gonna show y'all what I'm talking about as I'm putting it together. So what I'm gonna do here is, like I said, I have my dripping. So now we're gonna add in some flour. And this is like, this little scooper thing is about like half a cup. So we'll start with like a half a cup of flour and go from there. So we're just gonna sprinkle it in. And I can already tell that that's not gonna be enough. So we'll do about a half of that. So as of right now, this is about 3/4 cups of flour. All right, so I have my flour in here. Like I said, we started with about 3/4 of a cup. Now, as this is right now, I would say this is a little too thin. You can still see that it looks pretty oily. It's got a good thickness to it. It's staying separate as I like drag my spoon through it, but it is just a little too thin. So we're gonna add a little bit more. I would say about another 1/4 cup. So far, if my math skills are correct, we've done about a cup of flour. And we started with, I would say, about like a half a cup of oil and a stick of butter. I don't know what the exact measurements are of that, but that amount, and then now we're at about a cup of flour. And this is getting a little bit thicker too, and I like this consistency. I think this is a good starting point. Now you will find as your roux cooks, there's like stages to it. It's gonna look nice and creamy and thick, and then you're gonna get to a point where everything looks like it's starting to separate. And then you're gonna get to a point where everything looks like it's clumping up and it's starting to burn. There's like many stages to a roux. Just stick with it, tough it out. It's so worth it. The key to a roux is starting it on a very low heat, because if you burn your roux, you gotta start all over. And I really don't wanna start all over because I have so much good flavoring and all of these drippings in here. So we're gonna be very careful. Now, I do like to live dangerously sometimes, and I will kind of crank the heat up just to kind of rush through it. But I wouldn't advise that if you've never made a roux before, or if you're afraid that you might mess it up. So heat on really low. Some people will leave their heat on low and like cook this bad boy down for like 2 hours. If you want to do that, do you, baby boo, but I'm not about to stand over a pot for 2 hours. I'm sorry. So usually what I do is I start it on low, and when I feel like we get to that safe space where I can kind of let it go and be independent, I'll turn the heat up a little bit. And again, in the first few stages, while it's on low, I would advise to kind of stir it pretty regularly. But then when you kind of get to that point where you're not really afraid of it burning too much, and you can kind of leave it be. You don't have to stir it constantly. But in the beginning, I'd advise, give it a little TLC. So our roux has been going now for a little bit, and we are now to the point where this bad boy is about to burn. Kind of a sick game that I like to play with myself, is I like to see how far I can push the roux without it burning. So this sucker's about to be lost. We're gonna add in our chopped seasoning. Now, this is a mixture of some onion, bell pepper, celery, garlic, and a little parsley. A lot of times I just buy it pre-chopped at the grocery store. So you're already going through all these other steps, so make it easy on yourself. If you can find the stuff already chopped in the store, just get that. If you want to be Becky Homeki and chop it yourself, then you do that too. And this kind of freezes the roux where it's at. So when you put the chopped seasoning in, you're not really as worried about it burning anymore, because you have that liquid and moisture coming from the chopped seasoning that kind of protects your roux a little bit, I guess. And it's always a lot easier to make your roux first and then add in your chopped seasonings, instead of trying to saute your seasonings down and then making a roux on top of that. And then you really don't need to saute your seasonings down, just because this is gonna boil for a while. So they're gonna get super soft and tender and melt away into the gumbo to be. I have all of this stirred in here. Crisis averted, the roux has not burned. So now we're gonna season this. Super important you season every layer. Same seasonings as before. We're gonna do some salt, pepper, some garlic, and onion powder, black and mama, of course, and a little bit more cayenne. Just, you can season that to taste. Let these cook down just for a little bit. Let them start to soften, and it should just take a couple minutes. Now we're gonna add in our chopped up sausage. We're just gonna dump this in, and this is a couple pounds worth. I don't know exactly how much, but it's a good bit. Amount of meat that you use. I come from a family where we prefer a lot more sausage to chicken, so this may seem like a lot to how much chicken that I have, but in my opinion, you can never have too much sausage in gumbo, so add however much that you like. Don't forget all of those juices from the chicken that collect in the bottom of whatever plate you put it in. That is Flavor Town, let me tell you. So pour those in. This is some homemade chicken stock that I made. I just like to take, you know, chicken remnants, some leftover or kind of stressed out veggies like onions, celery, carrots, whatever I have in my produce drawer that needs to be used. Put it all in a big stock pot and let it just simmer for a few hours, and you've got great homemade stock. Now, if you don't have homemade chicken stock, you can use store-bought chicken stock as well, or you could just use straight water. I mean, this is gonna be flavorful enough as it is, but the chicken stock does give it even more flavor. So we're gonna start with this. So like I said, 1 liter, 4 cups, whatever you wanna call it. So this seems like it might be not enough. So I think we're gonna add probably a little bit more of just some water. If you had all chicken stock, you can do all chicken stock if you wanted to, but that was the only chicken stock I had left. So we're gonna add in, I would say we'll start with like 2 cups. Altogether about 6 cups of cooking liquid. And I like to get it to where it's a little bit thinner than how I would want it to be once it's done, because, you know, like I said, as it cooks, it's gonna thicken up. And this smells so freaking good. It's like not even funny. So now we're just gonna bring this up to a boil, let it boil for a few minutes, and then we're gonna turn the heat down, put a lid on it. And like I said, try and cook it for at least like an hour or 2. The longer it cooks and simmers together, the more flavor everything's gonna get. But as long as, you know, you got your chicken and stuff cooked through, you know, simmer it as long as you need to, but the longer, the better. And we're 1 step closer to having gumbo. Y'all, this gumbo, it is so rich. No, what was I about to say? It is like the perfect thickness. Chicken is just falling off of the bone. And if you're like me, I like to put a little gumbo in my actual, no, not gumbo.
Potato salad.
I like to put potato salad in my gumbo. Now you can leave it on a little plate next to it. I won't discriminate, but I like to put it in my gumbo because it gets it kind of creamy, and then also helps kind of cool it off so I can eat it that much quicker. You will not be disappointed with this. Let me know what you guys think if you make it, and tag me at Cooking Champagne, and enjoy. Bye y'all.